Well, welcome back to another special edition of the podcast. We have a special guest here today, Drew. Drew, welcome to the show. Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Well, Drew, just for those who don't know who you are and what you do, tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is you are involved with.
Fantastic. My name is Drew Lentz. You can find me online on Twitter and on Instagram and on all of the social pipes. At Wireless Nerd is my name, so wirelessnerd.net. I've got a little logo with some Wi-Fi and a heart behind it. And I've got a couple different things I do. I'm the business development director for Cape Networks, which is a sensor-based startup out of San Francisco. I'm the owner and operator of a VAR integrator in South Texas called Frontera Consulting. And I have a nonprofit. I'm the co-founder and one of the guys, the president of a nonprofit called Code RGV, which is in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas. And I've also got the Wi-Fi stand.
Cool.
So do a couple different things here and there.
Wonderful. Well, we want to talk a little bit about the nonprofit. Tell us a little bit about what that does and kind of your involvement with that.
Yeah, so Code RGV was established about 3 years ago. What happened was, actually it was a little bit more than that, about 5 years ago.
Okay.
Basically what happened is when I went to go start my VAR integrator down here in South Texas, I went to hire people, and I realized that there weren't a lot of qualified individuals in this area to work on wireless networks and do switching and routing. And I wanted to understand why that was, but I also wanted to make sure that I had the employees to run my business. And so what I wanted to organize was a user group where people could get together and learn about different technologies and kind of cross-pollinate educationally, if you will. And the best way to do that was to gather all the people that were interested in something into one place at one time. So myself and a couple of other people got together and started to organize these meetups. And those meetups turned into hackathons, and those hackathons turned into something that we call the Code Academy. And the Academy is a night where we all get together and we share ideas, we swap ideas, and the whole goal is building better nerds. And so what we want to do is make sure that all of our nerds are the best nerds that they can be. And what we mean by that is if you're good at database design and I'm good at wireless, and you teach me about database and I teach you about wireless, we've built a better nerd for both of us. And so we started by working on lessons and by working with different things that we could produce free of charge for the community. And what that's led into is a number of different programs. We've received over $300,000 in funding from the Texas Workforce Commission for doing boot camps. We've received tens of thousands of dollars for our community outreach programs, like our Classroom on Wheels that we're going to talk about. And we've done everything from drone camps and programming camps all the way up to advanced robotics. We were part of the Zero Gravity Robotics Challenge. Our team was the first in the state of Texas, and they went on to the nationals at NASA there in Houston. So we've done a lot of different things, but the whole goal is to build better nerds, and now we're starting them in elementary school and trying to figure out how to get the older ones jobs. So it's a great nonprofit.
So it sounds kind of like you didn't necessarily envision it happening exactly how it has, but it's grown into something very cool.
It has. Man, it's really cool because it just started out as a group of people that kind of had the same idea. We wanted to get together and we wanted to learn off of each other, and we wanted to find people that we could hire and get them to advance their skill set. And what that turned into is us being one of the largest drivers in technology-based workforce development in the state of Texas. So it's really interesting the way that it's kind of meandered into where it is, but it's all kind of with the same idea, and that's that people in technology never quit learning, and they should also never quit teaching. If you real early on when I got into my career, someone said always be working your way out of your job, and I think that's some of the best advice ever. And part of the way to work yourself out of your job is to teach the people underneath you everything that you know, because you don't really know anything until you try and teach it. And so it keeps all of us on our toes, and it gives us a good outlet to be nerds twice a month with each other and drink. We offer free beer and free pizza at all of our events. We're sponsored by our local distributor, LNF Distributors. They provide great. all the free beer for us if you're over the age of 21 in the state of Texas. And we've got pizza sponsors and all kinds of other stuff. So it's a fun way to hang out with other nerds, but we like it.
Very cool. So you talked a little bit about the School on Wheels. Dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah. So, I live down in deep South Texas. And when people ask what that means, everyone asks if I'm close to Dallas. And the answer is absolutely not. if you hold your left hand up with your palm facing yourself and you make the little figure of a gun pointed straight up with your three, your pinky, your ring finger, and your middle finger curled in, and you like have a gun pointing up, that's more or less the state of Texas. And if you look down on the right-hand side where your wrist meets your hand, that's the U.S.-Mexico border, and that's where I live.
Okay.
We live in one of the most economically challenged and diverse areas in the country. Out of the 220 colonias in the United States, about 80% of them are in this area. And what that means is the amount of poverty here is enormous. And we realize that being in poverty, to some extent, you're a victim of circumstance, but there comes a time when you've got to do something to take a stand to get yourself out of that. And that's where we really wanted to come in. So we knew that if we were going to teach people about technology, we wanted to start to affect them at a very early age. We wanted to get, not when they're in university, not when they're in high school, not when they're in middle school, but we wanted to start to teach them about technology in elementary school so that we could help them help themselves by teaching them about some really cool things that are out there. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of schools. Only 22% of the high schools in the state of Texas have some type of computer science program. And down here, there's not a lot of those 22% exist down in South Texas. So what we decided to do is figure out a way we could take education to the community. So we partnered with a couple of different people. United Healthcare was very generous. Cradle Point was very generous. And we built these RVs. We took 35-foot RVs that we bought on eBay, and we gutted them, and we put 20 workstations in them. We started with Raspberry Pis, then we moved up to MacBooks with a donation from Texas Workforce Commission. And these classrooms on wheels, as we call them, we call it a cow. Our classroom on wheels drives out into the community and takes the education to the students. They might not have the means to make it to us on the weekend, but that doesn't mean that we can't teach them. So we drive into their neighborhoods. We flip up the free Wi-Fi. We've got some little trailers that have generator-powered Wi-Fi on them, so we can provide enough Wi-Fi to cover an entire city block through our partnership with Aruba and Cradle Point, providing the back end for it. So we can roll into a neighborhood, set up Wi-Fi, give people a place to learn, teach them some lessons, and then take it down and move it on to the next neighborhood. So that was what the COW program is all about.
That's very cool. What are the responses you're seeing from these kids that are getting involved with this for the first time and as they've been involved with it?
Enormous. I mean, it's really neat to see some of our students that started with us 2 or 3 years ago that are now getting involved and engaged in some of our other programs. We did a summer drone camp with Parrot and Apple this year. Well, we used Apple products, and Parrot really took care of us on the Parrot educational side. And we did this really cool really cool drone program where we brought in these Parrot AR drones and we flew them around, and we had the students learn how to fly the drones. We taught them about, lift and thrust and drag, all the fun stuff. But we also told them about the programming aspect of it. So we used block-based programming, very similar to Scratch, to teach them how to program drones. And what we did is we took this very cool technology that they wanted to play with, and we made it applicable to them. They started with us 3 years ago learning Scratch, right? Yeah. We offered free classes, and they could learn Scratch. So they understood block-based design and block-based programming and the logic and critical thinking that goes along with it. And then this summer, we taught them how to take that and apply it to something physical, and to see them go through that was tremendous. But the next step was to partner up with the Texas International Produce Association and help create a way that these students could understand that what they were learning wasn't just about flying drones through hula hoops in a classroom. We gave them the opportunity to work as interns with some of the local produce companies down here so that they could talk about using drones for agricultural use, to do leaf counts and tree counts, to do chemical applications, to do photography. And we showed them that even though what they're learning is really cool and it's something that we've been teaching them for a while through that critical thinking and process, now they can take that and they can apply that to a way to make money and help our local ag industry. So we're all learning at the same time, and we're helping them grow not only as individuals, but helping them grow to increase our workforce in this area and to create the overall applicability of technology. It's tremendous.
That's incredible. Well, one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you, and specifically now, other than what you're doing, is just amazing, and I think everyone should know about it, but this hurricane, how is that affecting you? Is it affecting you, and what's going on with that and you guys?
Yeah, Hurricane Harvey. It was a near miss for us down here in the deep south part of the state. We were in the cone of destruction when all of the first accounts were coming in, and what that means for our local economy is that our gas stations ran out of gas, and our shopping centers were cleared of all bread and water and non-perishable items, and windows were boarded up, and sandbags were being distributed throughout the community. We thought that it was going to come right into us, and it made that little turn at the last minute, and it ended up going in about 150 miles north of us. And if there's this amazing article that's online right now. It talks about Texans and about how Texans are Texans first, Americans second. It was interesting because our fellow Texans to the north of us got hit significantly. It's every time I think about the destruction that we witnessed, it takes me a second. I got to catch my breath because what we saw was entire towns that were basically leveled. I've never seen a water tower flattened. It's been a long time since I've seen a 480-foot guide tower bent over in half, or 400 feet of steel laying on the ground, and not to mention the billboards that were ripped in half, and airplane hangars that were flattened to the ground with the airplanes still in them. I posted all these pictures online on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Code RGV. And I took some pictures of kind of the destruction that we saw. And we saw it because we knew that there was a need for everything when this event took place. And we couldn't just sit here knowing that we had resources to do things and let it pass us by, or know that we could help people and us not be able to do something about it. But we faced the question that everyone faces, and that's, I want to do something, but I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And how does someone who's a wireless nerd contribute, to a storm-stricken area? How do a bunch of IT guys, figure this out? And so we said, we're not going to jump out of helicopters, right?
Yeah.
we can't really cook that well. I wouldn't trust me to build a house, but what we are really good at is communications, and we're really good at networking. So we partnered with a couple different companies. Cambium Networks, such a great company to work with, from the CEO level, from Atul and Ron and the whole group there, all the way down to our local Texas rep, Kelly, through and through. The company is always so community minded. And they said, what can we do for you? And I said, well, give me a PTP 650, because anyone in the wireless industry who's used one of those things know that it's kind of a magical device. I said, get me a PTP 650. Let me figure out where I can get a temporary tower, and let's see if we can communicate with one of the local wireless ISPs. And the goal was to set up emergency communications in the downtown area and provide Wi-Fi access, computers, phones, sat phones, tablets, whatever we had, so that people could use it. Because we figured the last thing that they were thinking about when they ran out of their house was, let me grab my charger or let me grab my laptop. Yeah. People were running for their lives. And when the floodwaters came and the destruction hit, it didn't spare anything. And so we got the equipment in. VTX Broadband, which is a local broadband service provider down here in the Rio Grande Valley, they had a cow that hadn't been used in 2.5 years. A tower on wheels, and it's a 30-foot trailer, but a 29.5-foot trailer and an 80-foot tower. And we said, yeah, we'll take it. So that got taken up to the Rockport area. We ended up going to Rockport, Texas.
Okay.
We had our link. We had their tower. We had generators. We had all of the end user supplies. Now we needed was an internet connection. So we reached out to work with a couple of different internet service providers to see who had a tower that was within 20 miles that we could connect to. We started to work with one provider, but that didn't work out. They wanted to use some gear that was shooting an 80 megahertz channel across the water, and I said, nah, not really interested in doing that. And then we met with Rockport Wi-Fi, a guy named Kevin, and he said, please don't shoot an 80 megahertz channel across this, because I'm using 5 gig for all the first responders, and if you blow that network, there's going to be a lot of unhappy National Guardsmen.
Yes, we need them engaged.
Yeah, so we're like, dude, we had to think, and this is where the wireless component comes in, right? We had to think of not only what would work, but what would work best for the scenario.
Yeah.
He was using Rockport Wi-Fi is a provider, has about 4,000 customers in and around the Rockport area. And they're not a small shop, and they have such a cool business model. They don't believe in putting huge tripods on people's houses. So they stick up points of presence and base station sites everywhere they can. So you're never more than just a handful of miles from one of their transmission locations because they don't think it looks good to have these huge towers on top of people's houses, which I agree with.
Yeah.
So it was awesome because we got to tie into them, and it was using their network. They run a Ubiquity network and some Cambium stuff across their network now as well. But the network that they had, if I would have put up this link from this manufacturer and tried to negotiate an 80 megahertz channel, I was shooting right across the downtown area, and I was shooting right into the main communications tower for Rockport. I would have destroyed it. I would, no matter what frequency I went on, I would have created so much interference in that area that it would have not only defeated the purpose of what we were trying to do, but now we would have been an active interferer on that network. So I coordinated with Kevin. We coordinated with that PTP 650. We said, you go on the lower band, I'll go on the upper band. But then we ran into a snag because that tower hadn't been used in 2.5 years and the winch broke on it. So we ended up taking one of his subscriber units and putting it onto our tower. We connected in at 20 megabit per second. We piped it into a cradle point, and our cradle point IBR 1100, which was a giveaway, a freebie giveaway that they gave our nonprofit as a sponsorship. We used the IBR 1100 to do WAN interface using Ethernet to his network, and then a T-Mobile interface to connect to T-Mo's network because it was pretty decent there in Rockport. So that way we had pretty reliable communications. We piped that into a Fortinet to do firewalling, active firewalling, and safety checks so that no one was, we weren't having all of our bandwidth being eaten up by viruses and malware and whatnot. And then we distributed it via Cambium E500 and E400 wireless access points, running PoE off of the switch that we had there. We had 9 Polycom phones. We ended up with 10 or 11 MacBook Pros, 8 iPad tablets.
Cool.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. It was awesome.
So where are things now? Did you guys do that come back out? Is there, I guess the question I'm getting to, where is the need now? Is there anything, because the same question you asked, we're asking as a community, is there anything we can do to help? How can we help? Is there stuff, for the future? How can we?
Yeah,
engage?
I think one of the things that we struggled with when we started to look at doing this operation was, number one, how are we going to contribute and in what way? And then number two, what good is a contribution if it doesn't have any longevity to it?
Yeah.
So we wanted to figure out a way that we could impact that community that's going to not just help them while we're there, but it's going to help them 3 to 5 years down the road. And so, those are big things to work with because everyone wants to donate water and clothes. And I'll tell you something that I learned out there. We were stationed right across the street from the donation drop-off area, and there were mountains of clothes. I mean, mountains of them. And I'm not saying not to contribute stuff. Don't get me wrong. Kind of preface to what I'm about to say. Don't not contribute. To use a double negative. I mean, do something. But no one wants to wear your old clothes, man. Like that's just common sense that I guess a lot of people don't think about. If you're not going to wear them, don't shove them in a bag and send them down to someone like they live in a freaking third world country because they just got, their lives devastated. No one wants that. They want a fresh shirt. They don't want a shirt with 10 different stains on it. And so from a donation perspective, you have these mountains of clothes that were totally unusable that are going to get destroyed or thrown away or donated to someone else, then donated to someone else, then donated to someone else. But, food and water always goes a long way. Diapers. The one thing I learned a lot was cleaning supplies go a long way. Clorox bleach and wheelbarrows and push brooms and tarps and working gloves. Those are the things people were asking for. And our impact on it, what we didn't know, we didn't know how we were going to have an impact. I mean, what are a bunch of nerds going to do? We felt kind of rude. We rolled in with 40 grand worth of laptops and said, hey, the internet's here. When people can't even eat or have fresh water or flush their toilets, who cares about the internet? And we found our place. Our place was having people that had to register for FEMA, because in order to get the first part of FEMA registrations done, you have to fax in all this paperwork.
Okay.
What I just said is that you have to fax in all this paperwork. And let me repeat
fax?
that you have to fax in all this paperwork,
Wow.
because people still use faxes, apparently. In the federal government, at least they do. And FEMA didn't even show up until Saturday. A week and a half later, FEMA showed up. And when people went to go fill out their registration, they said, okay, well, have you faxed in your paperwork? And they said, well, no. And they said, well, we can't help you until you fax that stuff in. And they're like, you realize you're sitting in the middle of complete destruction asking me to find a fax machine, right? So we set up an eFax account, and we took pictures of people's stuff and we eFaxed it into FEMA to get them started. We were processing FEMA registrations 3 days before FEMA showed up on site. We were processing registrations for Texas unemployment, disaster unemployment insurance, or disaster unemployment aid.
Yeah.
So that either someone who was working a job who lost their job because of the hurricane, or even a business owner who lost their business because of the hurricane, both of those people can apply for assistance through Texas Workforce. And so, since Texas Workforce has always been a huge partner of ours, we made sure that we were advocating for them, letting people know that service was available. But the little things are really also what helped. We helped a lady named Brandy, and this made the story in our local paper. Brandy rolled up onto our site. She walked up about 8 o'clock in the morning one morning, and she was just totally grief stricken, and didn't really know which direction she was heading in. And so, here we are, a bunch of nerds all cheery, and I said, hey, can we get you something? And she looked at us, and with the saddest look in her eyes, she said, all I want is my dogs. And we said, okay, well, how about a bottle of water to start? And we gave her a bottle of water, and we said, what are you looking for? She says, I don't know where my dogs are, and my phone's dead, and I don't have a charger. And we said, you know what? You came to the perfect place. So she sat down, we charged up her phone, and she started using our voice over IP line. A company called Landstar Communications donated 8 voice over IP lines for us. And she picked up the phone and she Googled the information for the pet shelters, and she started calling around. 3.5 hours later, she disappeared, and we thought, well, I hope we're able to help her. About an hour later, she shows up with both of her dogs, and she came over to us crying, and she gave us huge hugs, and she said, I found my dogs. I wouldn't have been able to find them if it wasn't for you. These dogs are my life. And you're talking about a lady whose everything that she owns is in a plastic shopping bag that she's carrying around with her, and all she wanted was her dogs.
Wow.
And it was stories like that really hit us, because it's not that we're technologists, and it's not that we're nerds, but it's the power of communication for people that we were able to restore in a time when no one had it. And the challenge is that if you were to lose your phone for a day, if you were to lose, granted, I love going on vacation to where I don't have a signal, but if you were to lose your phone, or if you were knocked out of communication and you were frantically trying to get in touch with your family, and your family is frantically trying to get in touch with you, communications is one of the most important things. And there was none of that there. So we went, and that's where we found our little niche. And as soon as FEMA rolled up with their satellite trailers and they started registering people, T-Mobile came back online, then AT&T and Sprint came online. I don't want to say that there wasn't a need for us, because there were still no fax machines in Rockport, but we felt like we had done our part, and we had made plans, to do some stuff that weekend, so it was difficult for us to stay, but we left knowing that we had helped some people out, and one of the coolest things I saw was 2 days ago, I got a notification that our buddies at SQL Data Systems in San Antonio had gone down to do the same thing. And so they set up, when we left, they came in the following day and set up shop. And they reached out to us over Facebook and said, where do we set up? What do we do? And we pointed them in the right direction. And they're still, even to today, they're sending us pictures of the applicants that they're processing to do FEMA registration, so people can start to get their lives back together. And, it was nerds that came through when we were absolutely needed. So kudos to everyone that helped.
So obviously it sounds like you're specific, going in there and helping, that's past. what if people just want to kind of support the work you're doing in general? Is there anything else you need from us as a community, or any way that we can help in general?
You know what? I would love to put a challenge out there, and this is gonna be kind of weird, and I'm just kind of thinking about this on the fly. But one of the things in working with Rockport Wi-Fi, and I'm not trying to play favorites. There's other providers that are out there, but I'll tell you that Rockport Wi-Fi was the guy who was boots on the street, standing right beside us, getting us our link up and working with first responders, trying to get something together so that people could communicate. My conversation with Kevin at Rockport Wi-Fi was about his customers. And he said, Drew, we have 4,000 customers, and I don't know how many are going to be left after the storm. Not so much because of anything other than they might not have a house to put a radio on, or how many of my customer subscriber units didn't make it through the storm? How many of them got knocked out? And they don't have $150 to replace it, or $200 to replace it, or to pay for the truck roll. And he's sitting there, and he's in a situation where, 6 of his towers got knocked over. So he's trying to figure out how to rebuild his ISP. What would be really cool is if anyone who's listening who has a wireless ISP, if every time you order 5, Cambium subscriber units, order an extra one and ship it to Kevin, because I think what would be really neat is to see him be able to rebuild his network and be able to go up to his customers and say, you know what, your home got destroyed, but you don't have to worry about getting connected to the internet. Someone has made a donation of $100, which has translated to this subscriber unit. So we'll install it and get you back online so you can get your life put back together. Something simple like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I realize asking for $100 from everyone is kind of, I'm not trying to sound, elitist or whatever, but, it would be really neat if the service providers that can be the first responders to this could rebuild that network, and be able to help the community out, because the community is going to need it. And I'm a huge advocate for wireless ISPs. No one can do it quicker, faster, better than a wireless ISP. It takes, when you look at what's happened with all the telecommunications and the lobbyists and the AT&Ts and everybody of the world, they're under no state federal mandate in the state of Texas to repair the phone infrastructure that's out there. As of 2011, what happened was, the Telecommunications Act in 1934 basically said that anyone who operated a CLEC or an ILEC and was in a territory, they were under a state mandate that they had to provide telecommunication service to everyone. But in 2011, all that changed. So all these lines, all these copper lines and fiber lines that serve these rural communities, if AT&T doesn't want to replace them, they don't have to. There's no law to support a carrier of last resort in these communities. And what reason do these guys have to go into a place like Ingleside or Rockport or Taft or Odom or Sinton? Why are they going to go out there and spend millions of dollars to rebuild infrastructure if they're trying to push everyone over to voice over IP anyway? So wireless ISPs stand in this unique situation where they can capitalize on the fact that all the other infrastructure is destroyed. But not only that, they can do it in less than a day's time. So what I'd love to see help out, if the nerds really want to help out, is reach out to Kevin over at Rockport Wi-Fi, and talk to him and see if there's anything you can do, if there's any equipment you can donate, if there's any help you can donate. They have more food and water than they need. The city of Rockport, on their Facebook page, they have a notice out there that says, please do not send any more donations. We do not need any more donations. Do not send any more donations. There's nowhere to store them and warehouse them. They're all going to be disposed of if they expire. So they don't need that. What they need is their damn community back. Yeah. They need electricity and streetlights. They need internet access. They need fax machines. If anyone has a fax machine, I'm just kidding. Don't send your fax machines. But that's, think about it a little bit unique. If you're a nerd and you can contribute something, that's a fun way to do it would be, don't send old used equipment, but send something that maybe Kevin or the team down there at Rockport Wi-Fi could use to help build the service to the community. I would love to see, us band of nerds get together and ship them enough access points so they could provide a free hotspot downtown or at the schools or at the parks or something. Yeah. I mean, this is a great opportunity to rebuild that city and those communities the way that we can in 2017.
Yeah.
And part of that is internet infrastructure. So,
well, Drew, thank you so much for your time and just kind of giving us a, I guess, boots on the ground account of what it was like to go in and actually offer some help in an unexpected way. Is there any last maybe encouragement you say? Because obviously this is your neighbors, your fellow Texans, and this hurricane is on the news and all of that. What advice would you give to other people who just might be facing their own little mini crisis or things that are as real to them, even though they may not get the big news coverage? How do you respond? How do you help? What did you learn from this experience that you might just share with the community?
I learned that number one, I can say all the good stuff about Texans. Texans are resilient. Texans are strong. Texans are proud. But this isn't just a Texas thing. I mean, we're sitting here. It's 5:00 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, and Hurricane Irma is about to just barrel into South Florida. Yeah. And the towns that I was in were devastated and ripped apart by Category 4. This thing's already a Category 5 that's gonna nail Southern Florida. My heart goes out to everyone that's in these communities and in Houston and in every place that's been affected by it. But I think to the IT community, to the wireless people that are listening, don't discount what we do at all. And if you think you can help, if you get that little voice in your head that says, hey man, you should totally go do something about that, that's all you need. That's your conscience telling you to get off your butt. I helped put together a response team, with Scott Wynn and the guys from Motorola when all this happened with Katrina. We put together kind of something similar, but we didn't get a chance to go in there because it was just not a good situation. But if you have that little voice in the back of your head that says, hey, you can do something about this, then by all means do something about it. Not everyone has the resources we have, and not everyone can jump in an RV and drive a couple hours to go help out. But reach out to the local community, reach out to the guys that are the service providers, reach out to the people that need the help and see if there's something you can do. Send a donation. Be mindful of your donations too. I'm not trying to say anything bad about any of the nonprofits that help out in the community, but look for people that are going to go provide actionable solutions, man. Find people that are going to be there, that are going to do something. And I'm not trying to say send me money, but the money that people sent in to us, and we only raised like $2,500 or $3,000 or something, but the money that was sent to us had a direct impact. Yeah. Whereas money that's sent in other places, we didn't see some of these national groups show up until the day we left, which is a week and a half later. So do what you can for who you can. Pay attention to what it is that they're looking for. Food, water, all that good stuff. But from an IT perspective, if you think you can do something, do something. If you've got the means to do it, then just do it. It will be absolutely appreciated.
Well, Drew, thank you so much again for all you do and for sharing your time with us. And be blessed and stay safe down in Texas.
We will. And just keep everyone down here in your thoughts and prayers, and everyone out in Florida in your thoughts and prayers. It's going to be a rough week for them. So, if we can be of help, my nonprofit organization is at codergv.org. That's codergv.org. So if, I'm not going to ask anyone to donate, but if you feel so inclined, we'll be very grateful for that. We'd love to continue our programs, and we've got a lot of neat stuff to teach a lot of great kids. So if we can be of help or service to anyone, or if anyone needs advice on how we did what we did, please reach out to me, Drew at codergv.org. And we'll set you up with whatever we can. We'll pull any resources that we have to help anyone who needs something like this. So please feel free to reach out.
Thanks, Drew.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Wireless LAN Professionals Podcast, the podcast for wireless LAN professionals by wireless LAN professionals. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Wireless LAN Pros for all the latest news and updates, and also connect directly with Keith on Twitter at Keith R. Parsons. Head over to www.wlanpros.com for this episode's show notes, as well as the latest in all things Wi-Fi.